Mission to a MacGuffin in the form of a barista Wookiee!
Who doesn't want to be found?
How rude!
Devin and Peter will break down this Jedi/police raid operation.
The show contains spoilers for The Acolyte, episodes 1 through 4.
Insert lead in here. Did you just not finish this part?
I ran out of time. Let's just keep going. Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Devin, and this is I Am No Acolyte, part of I Am No podcast. Today we'll be discussing episode 4, Day. I'm assuming the next episode is going to be night, because now it's night.
Night. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, follow-ups from last episode.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the fire after having watched it again after we recorded our last episode, because I think there's definitely more to the story here. Maybe that was obvious, but there was a lot of stuff that I picked up on watching it a second time. For example, May, so we see May set the book on fire, and then we see the door on fire and everything. We don't necessarily see her intentionally set it on fire. So a number of things could have happened. She could have accidentally dropped it. Something could have scared her. Something else could have set it entirely. Someone else could have been there. There's a missing piece of that puzzle there. There's also the fact that
I hate to say it, but she set a metal door on fire, which...
there is also that.
I didn't point this out last week, but, a lot of problems there. Which is annoying because I get that they have to have their Star Wars design, and they're point is, it was a fire, just go with it. But I'm I'm not going to go. You could have so easily just written something more flammable into this witch treehouse that actually gets set on fire and burns the whole place down, supposedly.
It's also, the whole place is made of stone and, not wood, so that is...
Nothing would burn!
Nothing would burn, which is definitely a topic of discussion I've seen, so could be just go with it at Star Wars. There could be something else at play here, I don't know. Other things, so there's this big, energy reactor that they have that powers this place, right, which seems to have exploded, but earlier on in the episode, there's something wrong with it already. When they're in the training, they're doing the training thing, and they hear something, and they come out, and Mother Corin is looking at it, and there's something wrong. So there's something going on with that as a pre-existing condition before all of this happens.
Oh, I also rewatched it, and I did not catch that.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on it the first time because I wasn't looking for it, but the second time through, I was oh, that was there was already something going on with that. The other thing is when they leave, so they have the fire, they run out, all of the witches are lying there dead, but there's not rubble on top of them or any visible reason why they would have all just dropped dead from this explosion. Some big explosion happens, they all died, but they're just kind of lying there. There's, I said, there's no rubble, there's nothing on top of them, nothing has crushed them, they're not burned visibly. So that is kind of odd as well. Why did they all just suddenly die simultaneously? So there's definitely something weird there. And then the whole intrigue around what the Jedi's part in it, because they obviously have all been carrying this immense amount of guilt. Torben literally went into self-imposed exile and then took his own life. Kalnaka, we see in this episode, has drawn all these all the images around, he's been ruminating on this for years as well. Soul talks about needing to face his past, and he's I'll explain everything later, but he's obviously still very tormented by it. So something went down that involves the Jedi that they have not revealed yet. And I don't think that this whole incident was as simple as May set the place on fire.
Yeah, I don't think it's that simple. But also, I don't have really high hopes for all of the dots to connect when they tell us what it is. Just because so far they haven't. So we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see how... I'm more fixated on looking back. Some of the character actions are starting to make less sense. Randomly, Yord is being such a cop this whole episode, like he always is.
Yeah.
And he has shown that even though he's very narrow-minded in his actions, he'll at least, that will work to people's benefits. When he followed Osha, it was that worked out. Because he was being such a cop, it worked to the character's benefits. But randomly at the beginning of this episode, she's all yo, can you do a hard thing for me because you're such a cop? And he's like, actually, I'm really mature and I'm a monk and you're just supposed to grow and confront your past and be wonderful. And I was like, just make somebody else the writer's mouthpiece. This doesn't really make sense for his character. That and May was randomly like, I can just turn myself in. And I'm like, I'm sure you're going to say there's something informing that, but like right now there isn't a lot informing that character action.
Well,
so now I'm jumping back to the episode before where the mom was like, goes from being like raising cults, save your kids to actually you can do whatever you want. And I'm just starting to think the writers are just saying whatever, having the characters say whatever they feel like for the plot.
Isn't that all writing is? But like
it is, but I like it when this is just the only example that comes to mind because I rewatched it recently, but like everything in Avengers with Tony Stark kind of compounds itself. Like they wrote like, oh, this didn't work out. So in the next movie, he specifically fixed it in the suits.
Right.
That's a character thing that kind of like progresses and informs their actions and decisions. And this feels more arbitrary. That
does make sense. And I had a similar reaction, especially with May being like, oh, I'm going to turn myself in. And like everything, I was like, oh, that was like very abrupt. But also like, it's still kind of, well, I guess we're halfway through the season, but like, there's not been a ton of, we don't really have, no understanding has yet been built of like her motivations or like how she got from point A to point B. We don't know who this master is that she's following. We don't know how she met them, what they've been feeding her, kind of what's motivating her at this point. So those are all like left blank. And I think that it does say something that finding out Osha is alive is like a turning point for her. So like I think the fact that she's having this like what feels like a really abrupt change makes sense because she had her life turned upside down. She thought that her twin sister was dead. She's just found out that she's alive. That's an understandable point in your life to make some really drastic changes. And she says like this actually does change everything. Like I'm now prioritizing my sister over my master.
Her sister, who she solved the problem of, oh no, my sister wants to leave with I will kill you.
Yeah.
Like, despite us saying a lot of things are a little unknown in the last episode, that was black and white as hell.
Yeah.
Like, that was literally, she was just like, you're gonna leave? Not if I kill you. And I'm just like, is this a skit? Like, that's so 0 to 100.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm gonna prioritize my twin, who I tried to kill.
Well, you know what? She's had 16 years. She probably feels really bad about that.
She probably does, but her logic is all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, which probably is how grief works in many ways.
Yeah.
And feeling desperate, but I just feel like we're giving him a lot. Like, I just want to point out, I'm like, writers, you're not making sense. Like, get there. Get to the... And that's why I'm annoyed with the cliffhanger. Cliffhangers can be great. I don't like it when the episode is all set up just to a cliffhanger. I would prefer they just made this episode longer, personally, and then the results of whatever this dope fight is the cliffhanger. Like, oh no, the bad guy won. Like, that would have been a better cliffhanger to me than, oh, you better tune in next week because we had all this buildup and then nothing. Like, this feels very, like, ABC's Lost to me. So I felt like of the 4 episodes we've seen, this was the least strongest one to me because it was all build up, and the others at least kind of had like they felt like they had a more solid arc in comparison than this one. This one feels like the beginning of a 2-parter. So
yeah. I feel like I picked up on the same things, but I liked that. Like, I liked the cliffhanger. I felt like it made me really excited for the next episode, and like some of the stuff we talked about, May's abrupt turn, like, and like things like that are like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing now. But it's also like, it's keeping me guessing. It's doing a good job of like keeping it not feeling predictable. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you kind of see like, oh, okay, I think that this is what's going to happen next. But there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I really didn't see that coming, or like, I don't know where this is going. And like, that's kind of exciting to me. It really feels a lot more like a mystery genre, which is something that we haven't really seen in Star Wars very much at all. I get really excited when a Star Wars property feels like it's playing around with a genre that is kind of unique in the Star Wars universe, and that's kind of what this feels like to me. Like Solo, one of the things I really liked about Solo is that it's a heist movie but set in the Star Wars universe, and that was really fun because it was like a little bit different. And so this is really has this big mystery aspect to it that hasn't really been explored a lot if we think about it in Star Wars. So it's keeping me guessing. It's always, introducing the new, like, oh, where is this actually going to go next? And what is this character going to do next? And like, that's kind of exciting to me. So I'm excited to see where it's going next.
I also got to say, as much as I hate cliffhangers that are like this, this was executed fantastically.
Yeah.
Like, it was my favorite part of the episode, and that probably made me hate it more. Like, I hated the cliffhanger aspect in principle, but I didn't hate all of it. Like the minute she realizes the master is there, and they change the lighting, and they take their time with the Jedi realizing he's floating in behind.
Yeah.
Like, all of that cinematography, like, really had a solid horror vibe to it that was just like, this is so much stronger than you, and you have no idea what it is. Like, that's a good feeling that's hard to hit in cinema.
I agree. Yeah, I thought that was done so well. Like when she finds Kalnaka and he's been killed and she sees the lightsaber wound and she's like, she gets that look on her face and she's like, he's here. And like as it gets dark and like night falls, that was done so well. Like and how it like, and so that's why I'm like, well, the next episode is going to be night because now like night has fallen, it's getting dark, all this scary stuff is happening, and so it's like this turn.
Besides the main 4 characters, all those other Jedi are dead as fuck.
Oh yeah, they're toast.
Like, they're so dead. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That'll be fun to watch.
The last thing I was going to say about that was just that this episode also had some more little like comedic moments than previous episodes, which was kind of fun. Also, I think we're seeing this like light and dark, night and like day and night kind of thing between this episode and probably the next episode is probably not going to have any of that. But there were a couple moments that made me chuckle, and that was kind of fun.
Shall we do, how does this relate to the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, so the biggest tie-in that I have to know is one that I actually didn't think was a tie-in at first, but apparently the Cerean Jedi that's in their little war room there is actually Ki-Adi-Mundi, which I didn't realize at first. I was like, oh, there's another Cerean Jedi. But apparently that is actually Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Like in the conference room? That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
I didn't either. Well, because the timeline, I was like, well, that wouldn't make sense with the timeline, I don't think. But I saw people talking about it online, and then I went to IMDb, and he is listed as Ki-Adi-Mundi on IMDb. So I was like, oh, interesting. So that brings up a few things. So, and one of the main things is that first of all, according to Wikipedia, I don't know where this is actually cited, where this actually comes from, but it says that he was born in 93 BBY, which would be after this. So it seems that at least part of it is retconned, that like canonically he wouldn't have been alive yet. And they're just like putting him in here.
He was supposed to be that old.
He's not. I think he would be. Like, I think Cereans, do age slower than humans, but not that much slower, I don't think. But one of the main like inconsistencies that I've seen pointed out around his inclusion here is that in the Phantom Menace, he says the Sith have been extinct for millennium, which if he's here in this conversation now means either they're retconning that and changing the actual timeline, or the Master is not a true Sith, which I think is likely, or he's a lying liar face and he's just like, the Sith were totally extinct. I didn't know about one that existed. So the fact that they retconned him even being alive at that time means they might be retconning other things around that. But I think the most likely scenario there is that this Master isn't an actual Sith. So I'm interested to see what they're going to tie in with, if they're going to tie in more of his character there, if there's going to be a good reason to include him there, if it's kind of more of an Easter egg, or if it's going to show that he, like, this is how he knows that the Sith were extinct because they thought that there was one and then it wasn't one, or if there's going to be like some tie-in there, or if that's just going to be kind of a throwaway
I'm hoping
cameo,
that,
I guess.
Because I don't want them to retcon stuff like that, and that's such a huge retcon. Any line from Phantom Menace was really specific to the world building of the this area of Star Wars, and they've stuck with that Bible, so it would just not make sense, and it would be frustrating.
So I agree. So I think that that's the most likely scenario. I think that there's got to be they have to have some good reason for including him there. If they're gonna retcon him being alive at that time, it's got to be for a good reason, I would think. So maybe it's going to be like he'll have some sort of involvement other than just like a little cameo, because it seems like
I've seen a theory online about the Master's helmet, how the face has that creepy smile with teeth, and then that is similar to Abeloth's look.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and I'm like, so this might just be like several hundred years before like what happens in Ahsoka. Like there's some, like an acolyte of Abeloth has been sent to this galaxy to start putting things into plan. So that would be really, and that wouldn't be Sith. That would just be, dark side of the Force, like willing to obliterate. That would be really cool to see. So I'm rooting for that, because that would be Filoni's dream.
Yeah.
That's where I'm rooting.
That would be cool. I still don't know anything about Abeloth. I'm working my way through some novels. I'm trying to like work my way up to learning about Abeloth. And we talked a little bit about potential for her to be included in the next season of Ahsoka. So I was like, I put myself together a whole like reading list to try and get there by Ahsoka season 2. I am definitely not there now. So if that is where this is going, I will be really excited, and also like, I'm not prepared. But also the majority of people watching this won't have read all that stuff anyway. So
I also noticed, as long as we're theorizing about like what's it called, Sith and stuff like that, before we'd been hearing you have to kill a Jedi without a weapon, and we've been interpreting that, and a lot of people have been interpreting that as you have to not have a weapon when you do it. So it was like, oh, well, the knife didn't count, the poison didn't count. And now it seems in a conversation with Jason from The Good Place, who I know he has a Star Wars name, but he'll be Jason from The Good Place for me, because
that's what I've just been calling him as well.
Yeah. I only know his character name because of the subtitles. I think his name is Quinlan or Quinlan. We should actually look that up. It's so fun when you see a character played by an actor who the last thing they played was so distinctly different. I love that. I love that.
And yet there are similarities. Actor. Like he's still kind of like a goofy, like there's definitely some similarities with Jason. But when I'm talking to him about Chris, I've just called him Jason, and he's like, "What is his actual name?" I was like, "It doesn't matter. It's Jason."
Yeah, kudos to Manny Jacinto, because like that. I really think that's a lot of actors' dreams, to break out of typecasting and be like, I can also do this different thing.
Totally.
But I want the cut of this where he delivers all of his lines as Jason.
Oh my God, please. Yes.
What a great, someone please release that cut with AI or whatever. That would be great. If you can kill a Jedi without a weapon, then that would be like, just be
I
so
don't
funny.
Normally condone the use of AI for that sort of thing, but I would allow it in this case, because I want to see that really badly.
Just for jokes. I just want it for jokes.
Just for jokes.
Yeah. But now I think in a conversation he was having with May, it sounds more like they're saying that the Jedi has to not have a weapon.
I was confused about that as well.
It makes sense to me why that's the requisite, because if you kill an unarmed Jedi, as in you're not mid-fight with them like she was with Carrie-Anne Moss, and they're not carrying a weapon, but you talked them into killing themselves, which is different. It doesn't achieve this point. It's they don't have a weapon and you killed them, you executed them. So it's trying to say, can you murder someone who is that strong in the Force in cold blood? And that seems like a very dark side test.
Yeah, interesting.
And it seems like that's the context they're going for now.
Interesting.
So
it also occurs to me that, I'm just thinking of this for the first time, that she had this conversation with Jason where she was like, I'm going to go surrender myself and turn on the Master. And he's like, don't do that. And then through whatever series of events that happens next that we will maybe wildly speculate on later, Kanaka ends up dead. So like,
yeah,
due to her actions, probably, like, I mean, like the master comes and kills him because she was going to turn herself in. So through her little speech where she was like, I'm going to surrender myself, that ended up killing Kanaka pretty good. Like,
I still 1000% think it's him. Like, he
I
has
want,
the body type.
I was
sneaky.
like, when I saw that, I was like, well, that would make total sense because he was already there and he's the only person she told that she was going to leave. So like that makes perfect fucking sense.
Yeah, it's him. I think it's him.
Yeah, I have one other wildly speculative theory, which is that it could be, because I was my first thought was that, oh, it's the mother, it's Mother Anastasia, or Mother Coral, I guess, or some other witch. But my first thought was Mother Anastasia, and then I was like, she could also be taking the form of Jason as in order to like kind of be like this helper or person along the way. But I don't know why she would do that. But it could be something like that. But I don't know why she would hide her identity from May if she was doing that.
Or the other mom.
Yeah.
It could be the other mom.
Yeah, that's another theory too.
She was no small fry. She was like the
Mother
leader
Coral.
of that group. Yeah. And she probably didn't like that Mother Anastasia told Osha, you can do whatever you want. She probably disagreed with that sternly.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I think that's a possibility.
I would say, just to cover favorite parts, this whole ending was my favorite part. I think I even said that before. It was so creepy in a good way.
I agree. Like I said, I love it when when Star Wars starts experimenting with like other genre things, and this has some mystery, some thriller stuff, and some like actual horror like genre staples. That is always just exciting to see.
You said that there were some funny parts in this episode.
Yeah, one part that I just the one line that just like made me laugh a lot, and of course is Jason. But when they're like walking and he's goading her about, and this is another thing that makes me think that he definitely is the master, because he's like, well, so how are you going to do it? What's your plan? Like, you have to kill this Jedi without a master, right? Like, how do you think you're going to do that? And she's like, oh, I got it. And he's like, and he goes, I'm just curious how you're going to do it this time, because how you're going to do it this time. You failed so much. Like, and just like the way he delivered that line was just like really funny.
It felt very Jason, the way it was delivered, like you said, which made me laugh, but I was having the same thought that I would like, this is her teacher in disguise, pretending he's not her teacher and just her friend.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just like, you failed so much. Like, it was just fun.
It's like a mom being like, well, all the things you've done so far haven't worked. So what's your plan to pass the math test this time? Like, yeah.
Right. Like, what are you going to do differently this time from what you did last time?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're watching it, and Chris is like, I feel like if you have to kill a Jedi without a weapon, the Wookiee is not the one to do. Like, you're gonna get your arms ripped off.
That's gonna be the hardest. Yeah.
Yeah. But then she didn't have to, so I guess that worked out. Kind of.
Well, as far as
worked out great yet, but
as long as we're in the humor section of this, I want to get into my gripe about there being no day packs, because they're just like, we're taking off in the morning. It's not clear how long this is, but they all look into the woods and they're like, we're supposed to find them in that. And then like, it kind of could be night at some times. A lot of time could have passed. And I'm just like, I know you're Jedi, but no one has a day pack. No one brought snacks. No one brought water for this trip. Nothing. Like,
this is the kind of thing that Chris always complains about. Also, like, what people are wearing. Like, it was the first or second episode when Osha like crash lands on the like ice planet, and they go to find her there, and he's like, why is no one wearing like gloves and like coats? Like, everyone's just in their Jedi robes. I'm like, well, she crash landed. He was like, well, she crash landed there not on purpose, but everyone else knew where they were going to find her.
They knew where they were going. Yeah.
No one is dressed for this weather. Like,
it's fine if you don't pack it, but I'm like, if you have a whole spaceship, you've got, like, a spaceship is in space. Space gets cold if something breaks on the ship. You should have parkas on every spaceship.
And like yeah, exactly. And like, especially like if you know where you're going to an ice planet, like, bring like a couple extra layers, right?
Yeah, they did know where they were going. They knew exactly where they were going.
Yeah. So yeah, day packs seem like they're a bit like I guess they can get water in the stream, but they don't know that you're going to a planet. Like, you don't know if you can find stuff in the woods to eat. You don't know if the water.
I just want to speculate, how much do they pack in their robes? You know, like a girl stuffing like snacks into her bra at a Halloween party. Like,
that's
like if you've got point. All this
maybe those
stuff
robes have like really, really deep pockets.
They could also have like hidden, like sewn interior pockets that you would have on like a utility winter jacket. That's like, oh, also if you unzip it, there's a couple hidden pockets inside. Mm-hmm. But like, no Jedi's ever advertised that.
They have like the Utila kilt of Jedi robes.
Yeah, but like if you're in a fight suddenly with Darth Maul, you'd be like, hang on, this is going to be bulky. I have to get all the stuff out of my hidden pockets, because I was actually more prepared for this than you would think. I just look like Link from Zelda. I just have an invisible giant backpack, and it's the pockets in my robes.
We have like 30 seconds left in our timer.
Oh my gosh. I think we're ready for silly question.
All right, good, because we're out of time, so that's perfect.
Our silly question for the week this week is, what 3 characters do you take on your multi-day hike? I'm glad the last thing we talked about were day packs.
Yeah, this leads in real well.
It leads in so well. Build your crew. You are required to include 1 character from this show and 2 characters from anywhere and anything Star Wars, period. You want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Yeah, so my first one is going to be Chewbacca, because Chewbacca is the ride or die. He's going to get you out of any situation. Like, I've long held, if you need someone to have your back, if you're in the Star Wars universe and you need someone who's going to have your back 100% of the time, going to always come through for you, most reliable ride or die you can have is either Chewbacca or R2-D2. Those are the 2 options.
That's so true. Especially right? Chewie. Like, I feel Chewie way more than R2.
Well, like R2 will come in. He's kind of like a classic R2 move is just like he'll show up out of nowhere and just like save the day.
Yeah. But Chewie's like the ride or die who's just like, I am so loyal to you as a friend.
Exactly.
Like, I will pick you up and run through a battle with you. Like,
yeah. I'm like, if I'm like about to die and someone shows up out of nowhere to save me, I'm like, it's going to be one of those 2 people. Yeah, Chewbacca is a lot more of an all-terrain hiking partner than R2 is. So I'm going to go with him in this instance. But yeah, I think that he would be like, you fall and break your leg, Chewbacca's going to carry you out of there. Like, he's got you. My one that I'm choosing from this episode, which Peter's been trying to guess who I was going to pick from this episode, and I was like, you're not going to get it. It's going to be Pip, the little droid that she's got.
Oh, yeah, I never would have gotten that.
He's basically a multi-tool.
Yeah, he's a multi-tool in an MP3.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that seems like a great little buddy to have.
If your tools were alive, that's like...
Yeah, it's like in this like Beauty and the Beast little like.
That's such a if a Disney princess was a mechanic at the beginning of the movie, that would be her best friend.
Exactly, exactly. So that's a pretty good answer, right?
That's a great answer. Yeah, that's so creative.
As a little side note about him, I was thinking about him because I saw this interview with Amanda Stenberg last night that I thought was really cute, and she was talking about working with Pip and the puppeteer who like controls him, and how much she loves working with both the puppeteer and the droid. And she said that she was talking to him and just like she was talking about how impressed she was with the artistry of how much effort he puts into it and how he's always kind of controlling the droid, even when they're not like rolling or anything. He's just kind of like embodies it, and how he came up with like sort of this whole personality for him. And she was like, I see Pip as this very like, and I forget how she described it, but it's like outgoing and curious and like had this whole like personality about him. And she was talking to the puppeteer, I think she said his name was Jack, about like, how did you kind of come up with this? And he said that he based it on the personality of his baby daughter, which I thought was adorable.
That's so cute.
I'm
watching Pip so much more closely now, because honestly, there's sometimes it looks practical and sometimes it doesn't. And I've turned off that part of my brain. that even
cares. There's so much puppeteering that goes on in Star Wars that I don't even think about a lot of the time, and so it's kind of a nice reminder of like how much work goes into that. So yeah, I would go with Pip for my second one. And then my third one, I was trying to think of who my third one would be. I was like, well, I should fill out my crew with a Jedi, because we've got Jedi. You're going to want a Jedi who can use the Force to like move stuff, or like there's a rock slide and they need to like make the rocks levitate, or like pull a tree off of you or something like that. If it's a big enough tree that Chewie can't do it. So I'm like, a Jedi would just be really useful to have in a lot of situations. So I'm trying to think of like which Jedi would I want to travel with the most, especially when I have, assuming I don't speak Shriwook, and Pip is probably a decent conversationalist, but probably not much of one. I'm like, I want somebody that I'm going to be able to like chat with on this long hike and like have some good companionship, and have some like get into some really deep conversations. Is going to be reliable, somebody that I can trust. Qui-Gon Jinn. I feel like we could just like get into it and have like just like really good conversations the whole time, joke around a little bit, like get into some deep stuff, and I can trust that he's going to like not let me die.
He'd also, I feel like, be someone who like decreases the anxiety of the trip so much.
Yeah, he'd be like really chill.
You could have that moment where you're just like, does the trail go this way or does it go that way? And he'd just be like, well, what does the Force tell you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, well, I don't fucking know, man. I'm not a Jedi, but at least you're making me feel better about it if we fuck up. Like,
exactly. I'm like, it would just be like chill. Like, it would be a good vibe. Like, that we could just like have a good time. He's going to keep me safe, but not make it like overly stressful. I thought of Obi-Wan first, and then I was like, maybe too many rules, like maybe too much.
Obi-Wan is so, thinking about it in this context really drills home how not Qui-Gon Obi-Wan is.
Yeah, right?
Anytime you go wrong on the trail, he'd be like, well, you've done it again, Anakin.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't need that energy.
It's terrible energy if you think about it.
That's not really what I want.
It's so persnickety. He'd be more on, he'd be kind of like Yord, to be honest. Like, he's not as much of a
kind
cop.
of.
But he'd be bringing that energy of the...
Yeah, but he does represent, like, not in the High Republic era, but he does kind of represent the more, like, rule-following structure, like, law-abiding, like, what the Jedi is supposed to be based on its rules and working within its bounds.
Yeah. He's not looking at it with a critical eye. He's...
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, great choices all around.
Thank you.
From this one, I'm going to go with Jason from The Good Place.
Totes.
And I'm still calling him that.
That's just who he is.
First of all, it makes sense because it seems like this guy does his homework for expeditions. He seems to know this area very well. And when all the Jedi showed up, despite all their libraries and archives, and there being 20 of them who had a whole plane ride to have done their homework, They looked at the woods and they were just like, fuck, where do we find our friend in that? And he's just like, I figured it out. I know where he is. It's fine. It's going to be good. Just follow me. I run really fast.
Solid.
I know he's going to be competent, and I know he's going to have read a couple of the guidebooks.
He's going to be
important
prepared.
To me. Yeah. To balance that out, I need someone, to manage my insecurity. I need someone who's really got this shit and someone who doesn't have this shit at all. And I can be the person who's right in the middle. And I want that person to be Bill Burr from Mandalorian. I'm just picking famous actors. Yeah. But the whole time he'd just be like, fucking hate this shit. We're walking through the woods. Another giant moth thing is trying to eat me. Can somebody please get me a soda? Like, that's the other guy I want, that I can just be like, hey, okay, so he's going to tell us where to go, but like, you need to chill, man. And I can feel important. Like, I'm bringing something to the trip. My third pick is going to be, this was tough. I had a lot of different choices, but my theme so far has been, what sitcom is this? And I'm very much making it revolve around myself. I realized I've become the Ted Mosby of this one. And I'm like, okay, what are we missing in terms of stakes? Right now, it's just three guys on a hike. And that's always the most boring movie you've ever watched, ever. So I'm going with Leia because I want a romantic interest, and she's the best one you could possibly choose for me to pine after and not get, because that's a long shot, but like at least like I'm like waking up in the morning during this multi-day trip. You know, I'm just, oh, that's right. I got it.
When we got down to,
I gotta look cool in front of Leia. That's right. Wake up. Yeah.
When we got down to your third one, I knew it was going to be a romantic interest. I just like, I knew that was where this was going to go.
I had so many others, but I was like, that's the most comedic choice of the other ones that I had. So I stuck with it. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm like, 1, great choice. 2,
oh yeah,
don't hate me for this. Of course I want this. Yeah. Of course. So, yeah.
Solid. That's a solid group.
I think we both made very, very solid groups. Mine would be an interesting Star Wars sitcom, and yours would actually be literally a Star Wars hike dream twin.
I was gonna say, and I would just get where I needed to go.
Team.
A Dweem team.
A Dweem team. Oh man. Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening.
We'll be posting new episodes whenever we get them done at whenever they're ready. May the Force be with you.